Hello, everyone, and welcome to another World of Sasquatch. Today's episode is being filmed on 12/16/24. We're here today with Arkheim and Brian Tseng of the Disclosure Now movement, and we are doing a Sasquatch Q&A today. But before we get to that, we like we do with any lifting episode, Sasquatch episode, any of them, we're doing the Law of One as the opener. So, Joanna.
We are all one, and when one is harmed, all are harmed. When one is helped, all are helped. Therefore, in the name of who I am, and I am one with all there is, that only the highest good be done. We pray for you, your friends, your family, your loved ones to let healing energies in. Let them love you and nourish you and bring you to your highest good. We ask for benevolence now to come in with no conflicting agenda in order that we may have this conversation in peace, and that in order for the listeners to be able to listen to this in peace and take information in that they may find suitable for themselves, and to peacefully just let anything else go. And with that, and with great, great blessings we always send your way, we say, so be it.
All right. That's also how, I was talking off recording to Ida, and that's how we were thinking the conference should be set up too, is have a blessing like that, have the Law of One like that in the very beginning. With that said, I do have, I remember last time when we spoke on the Disclosure Now episode where Uram was on there. He paid me one more visit past that, and then a few other forest people expressed an interest in having a Q&A, like how we used to do the lifting episodes back in the day with the specific Q&A episodes. And so I'm like, all right, yeah, we can do that. Plus, we have a sister channel akin to Sasquatch. We have one called The World of Dogman that we're formulating as well. So we can do one for that too at some point. But because the Antiqua slash Dogman slash Regal Dogman made it a point to say, hey, what about us? So we're going to do that. So I I wrote down a list of a couple names here. We had Uram before. This one was named Roradam. And then also one that also, I don't know if more than one want to speak today. Is it going to be Roradam or is it going to be Telnorskus? Telnorskus, okay. Telnorskus, I will give a brief backstory here. He is literally the very first forest person I ever encountered. So, in any respect, channel or otherwise. This was back when I was in Nebraska. We'd always hear rocks hitting the side of the house. We didn't know what that was then. And then we figured out this was forest people doing this. Yeah, throwing pebbles, throwing all that, and we took us a while to figure out who that was. And in Prescott in Arizona, we had the same thing, rocks thrown on the roof, all that there too. So with Telnorskus though, he's a different breed of him. He falls under Anakim versus just Sasquatch. He is literally he would be like the elder, like the Genghis Khan of the Sasquatch world, where he had a bunch of children. So a bunch of children, grandchildren. He's one of the ones that actually came from space versus here.
And that's
Yeah.
probably important to know, because just like people talk about the Anunnaki and their long lives, there's something similar that happens with him. And I guess with the ones I could think that are still, of course, outside of, the earth. So one of the things I was hoping that he would talk about would be a little of himself, and of course, a little bit of that galactic history of their group basically coming down to colonize, to be a part of the groups that came to Earth long, long, long time ago, because I think it will be impressive. People won't realize when they really try to wrap their head around how old he actually is.
Mhm.
So I'm hoping he will talk about that.
So I don't know if you two have anything to say before we go into this at all.
No, nothing to say in particular. I mean, I guess I'll have questions to ask him. I was going to say, because he's Anakim lineage, then that means that he's very long lived, Anakim Sasquatch, and then that means he goes way back. And you're mentioning the Genghis Khan lineage, like he might literally go back all the way to the times of Genghis Khan and before then, is what you're saying.
Mhm.
Yeah, and like one that I channeled by the name of Segron, he's the elder of Spirit Lake, Chad Wagner's property. He said he was 20,000 years old. So Telnorskus said he's considerably older. So it's he was around in the times of the original Asgardian time frame and everything. That's 500,000 or more years. So that's uh pre-Ragnarok time frame.
Wait, did you say 500,000
Yeah,
years?
yeah. This is that would be the time of the Ragnarok, the explosion of Asgard. So that'd be roughly around that time. I believe he is roughly around that. So that somewhere in there. And we haven't even gotten into Titan races yet. And like Krum, for example, he's millions of years old. Tens.
Rome? Is that as in like Conan the
There
Barbarian?
actually is a Krum. Yes, yes. So there actually
One
is.
thing that I'm curious about, that might seem unrelated, and maybe it is so with the Bigfoot and Sasquatch, the forest people, really, that's what we should call them, right?
Mhm.
I'm a little more or less experienced, so really, I more just have a lot of questions.
Okay.
I know that I've definitely encountered them and stuff like that in all my different lifetimes in the programs, but my memories of that are pretty limited. I definitely know the real and stuff like that. But one thing that I'm curious about is I very much so sense that one thing that I'm curious about is the ant people who exist upon the Earth and also Mars and a lot of different other places, but their relationship with the Sasquatch, like what's that like? I'm kind of curious about that. And then that's just something that I like to talk about when we're talking about people call them cryptids. I think it's kind of a silly word for them because they're just different beings than us, and it gives this connotation that they're like just like animals or something, but they're usually very intelligent creatures. So I kind of don't really like the term cryptids. But I feel like they're kind of in the same territory where I know they very much so both exist. And I do know that I have memories of the Montauk Project. They used to have surface dwellings, but now they're just below the ground. And then I know that a lot of that stuff's a higher vibration, and I wonder if it's maybe a similar thing too, where they're kind of on the same wavelength as the forest people, where they're also phased into just maybe a higher vibration of reality or something like that. I just want to learn more about the ant people because I know during the Montauk project we did a best way to put it would be like a genocide. You'd call it a war against them, but I mean we just kind of exterminated them and made them run and hide. Um, and I feel really bad about it, and I really want to just connect to the ant people and learn more about them and honor the memory of them and the fact that they exist because I was instrumental in erasing that from our history.
Okay.
So maybe seems off topic, but I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, well,
No,
that
it
makes
does
sense.
make sense.
All right. Let Brian reconnect.
I'm gonna join on my computer here.
All right. That's just fine. I'll wait till you get connected there. Mm, okay. It's being ran. Look at there we go. All right. Now wait till he gets on. There we go. That looks better.
Okay, hopefully I'll sound better.
Okay, yeah, there we are. If anybody also on the shows in the future, here's a weird reverb in the background. The metal arm to my microphone has a spring on it, so when sound hits it, it goes a little bit if the sound waves happen to hit it just right. And so people are curious about that. So it's not the computer, it's not anything else. So, all right. Okay. Okay, Telnorskus. Telnorskus, Drew Pendleton, looking into the small Facebook corporate service. Forgive the interruptions. These types of discussions usually don't come without interference. not only to the human brain, but to ourselves as well. He timely made fresh tower busters when people purchased them recently, and that upped the ante as far as the energy field enough to be more receptive, the saturation of the energy. To us, he says it feels like a warm summer breeze, and I have to agree. Now, this is going to interest people. I can give you a rundown of my own history. In order to do that, I would have to give you a rundown of a few little galactic points. Now, what you know of as Sasquatch, forest people on Earth, are the descendant lineages of those that came from Atlantis and Lemuria and various parts therein. But there are elders that are the different tribal heads of different, you don't want to say faction, that is the wrong word. The proper name would be like elder, essentially like that. Yes, I know, Isaac Elder Squatch. Yes, yes. And so in this, already prepared for.
I actually I have my Jessica the Cryptid Huntress Karen Squatch pin on. So
Yes, yes.
I've got one of those too. I don't know why I'm not wearing it. I didn't think of that. They're excellent. I highly recommend anybody checking them out there. She's got some great merch.
Yes, yes, yes. Us forest people do have great merch out there. Yes, and some is reprehensible out there as well. So, not from the aforementioned party. So, I'm just saying that the elders, there are different ones, different parts of your country and North America and other parts of the earth. There are elders that are attempting to guide the descendant lineages back into a place of communication with your own people. Those elders, such as, say, Segron, for instance, of Spirit Lake, he is 20,000 plus years old. The other clans leaders are roughly that. We lost a few back in the 2020 period, but there are others that picked up the torch that were of the teachings of that generation. You know how in generation to generation passes, sometimes, no pun intended, the 100th monkey can ensue by which the generations enunciate, let's say, different bits of information and change bits of things. This was not the case this time around. Some of us have the genetic memory to carry it further. In this, though, myself, I actually came from a different star system altogether. I know in previous channels, in other programs, I said more the Pleiades, but this was not entirely correct. It is more of a spatial dimensional space by which then exited into the Pleiade. This is hard to explain if you do not know the physics. It is more, think of you're in a room and think that you're going into the next room that is a completely different layout, totally different colors, totally different sounds, totally different smell. Now exit that room to go outside. That's essentially what we did. Now, I myself was engaged along with a good friend of mine, Levick. We engaged the Orion contingent back during the times of the last, you would say, the last Great War. Roughly the end of part of the larger portions of it was roughly 500,000 years ago. What this ensued was the ones you know of as the Orion Greys broke through from a parallel dimension into your own. We also spotted this, and so did many other races that basically lit up the cosmos to prevent them from being conquered. These particular Greys were a version of yourselves from a parallel universe, and they were bonded with artificial intelligence. This also began to infect Atlantis much later on, but the time frame I was in originally, where I was more like yourselves, would be roughly in that time frame. Now, I say like yourselves. I'm still like yourselves, but with a different, how can I say, frequency, sound, pitch, modulation type of abilities, like our descendant lineage, but I literally can shift and create my own dimensional pocket at will and can actually step outside of what you know of as time, space, and dimension. We had to accomplish this in order to keep ourselves hidden long enough to continue our race, our species.
Yeah.
When we came to Earth, post-invasion period, we began to colonize. We began to take other members of our tribes and they began to seed part of the Earth. Other races seeded the Earth too, long before the Orions arrived. And a lot of that original terraforming capability was still in place. If you look in any random part of your planet that has those basalt pillars, the geometric pillars, you are not looking at a natural formation, you are looking at technology. So, with that said, they were just stopped in mid-formation. Therefore, they look different than any other structure, and also the Earth grew around them over a long period of time. That was slightly before my time. The galactics that were originally on Earth, millions and millions of years prior, were the ones that created that technology. I myself, roughly 500,000. Now, my energy was there in some places, but then as an oversoul, I took an avatar form. Now, fast forward to now. The races of the forest people that you interact with currently. There are those, of course, the descendant lineages. There are those that also can shift in dimension and frequency, of which you met dear Unam and others. And he's met Fuma, Simar, Mirnak, Morak, and all of them of Arizona, and Kiosa of Arizona. I myself am related to that tribe, or should I say they're related to me. They are literally my descent lineage, along with Sufas, the elder, at, let's just say, a youngin, being at 15,000 years old. The rest of them are in their hundreds, not thousands or tens of thousands. They would see me as literally older than dirt because I was around at the time of the second seeding. The second one would be after the Orions decided to perform scorched earth to the solar system. So with that said, at that time, races began to construct the Agarthan realms and live underground. Now, fast forward again a little bit to when certain hominid races were experimented on and created, such as your Neanderthals and other races, Australopithecine, any of these type of races. Some had our DNA, some had other ET DNA. This is why they looked slightly different than one another, and then they intermingled. Now, you had your Neanderthals that were not what you expect them to be. They were more like the orcs from Lord of the Rings, as your wife files would put it. They were more cannibalistic. They were more, let's just say, gross. So, with that said, they hunted regular humans and descendant lineages of regular humans that were already established on the earth. And regular humans ended up having to go underground to hide from them. Now, fast forward again to the Atlantean period. From that time, that's when the portals across time were made, entryways into your dimensional space were made. This is where your transhumanism comes from, is Atlantis, and this is where your Bermuda Triangle and all the triangles on the planet that are time fractures and rips in space-time are from the Atlantean Lemurian Wars. Nowadays, what am I exactly? You would see me as a Sasquatch forest person with all the same attributes, with all the same looks, if I were to phase into your frequency. Again, the only difference is I literally generate a pocket around me. I literally am my own dimension. as are humans. You are walking dimensional, universal. No, Isaac, they're not flesh sacks. So this, you know what I'm saying. You are literally a human uh, here, but you are literally an over.
So when people talk about how we choose our reality, choose our frequency, choose our future, sort of
Mhm.
with how we tune ourselves into reality,
Yeah.
that's what you're speaking to.
Yes, this is what I'm attempting to translate. Yes, I literally can create my own reality by attuning to that manifestation as if it already is occurring.
And it sounds to me like your ability to do that is probably heightened much more so than a human's would be.
Yes, and even our descent lineages as well. Yes, and our cousins, which would be you guys. Like you're in your movie 65, where you saw people coming to Earth in the pre-asteroid period and such. That is actually what occurred in that time frame, from what I understand. But now you are descendants of those that are now that have forgotten those times and have been told something totally different. Uh, in today's uh, time frame, I myself do sit in my own dimensional pocket, one that I have, as I said, created. If you came to what I have made, Odin's done the same with his version of Asgard, and other beings have done the same, where they literally have copy pasted. And Atlantis and Lemuria still exist somewhere in that respect, and also within what you know as the introverse, the worlds within worlds of dimensional spaces. I have a forest and cave system that, with members of my family that do come and go from that particular pocket. I communicate to you now from that particular pocket. Again, no different than you making this Zoom call. It is essentially the same, and it is actually a quartz vein that intersects that particular dimensional frequency that interacts with that of underground, or you would call it the Agartha network, but that is not entirely accurate. Now, I will say before I go into other questions, I know, Arkim, you had the curiosity of the ant people. They came around in the times of what you would call, or they were around much further back, in the time frame I was from, but also they really came into prominence in the two floods later on, the Younger Dryas period, which would be your Atlantean flood and Great Flood, and also one later on that affected during the Sumerian time frame. What occurred was this. They were a race that originally came from the Nine Realms in your Scandinavian mythology. That would be Asgard, and your nine planets are the openings to the Nine Realms. You have Vanaheim, which is Venus, etc. Now, with that said, they were literally on a landmass on Asgard. At that particular time, they are an upright, sentient ant race, at least the one that I saw then. Some have de-evolved into other things, but the one specific one that you are asking about also inhabited Mars, what you call Mars, and various other areas of Earth. They also helped dig out some of the tunnel system that some of your extremely ancient peoples were running away from the aforementioned Neanderthals. They helped with that. And they also helped again when the Great Flood took place. In some of those same areas, like underneath your Mount Ararat, for instance, the tunnel system that is under there, they helped dig that back in the original time, in the Paleolithic period with the Neanderthals. And also later on, it was added onto in the time of the Great Flood. The next one came in your Sumerian period. That would be more attributed to Noah. The one from before, there of course there was some genetics that were saved and animals that were saved and replanted back on the earth. So you're getting two different time frames actually that are in the Akhidic. Now, when it came to rescuing people, what they did is they helped like some of your Native American peoples. They helped some of your Middle Eastern peoples. They helped many, a great many people find their way into the Agarthan tunnels underneath when there are far more people under there. As far as now is concerned, There's just descendant lineages and bits and pieces and ancient structures in there from that time frame, and even further back. It's layers upon layers. Structures are built upon the bones of the civilization previous. So, and our people are no different. In that respect, if you were to see one of those ant people in their prime, they would literally be an upright, two-armed, two-leg ant person with either the mandibles or a human-looking face. And some of them still have carry that. Like I said, some de-evolved, some were attacked to the point and their genome were taken to create more monstrous concoctions by certain unnamed gods out there, I will say. In this respect, the ones that are left, there are some on Mars to this day living underground that are a separate descendant lineages that stayed there from the times of Asgard and even past the time where Mars got ripped apart. Now you have the ones under the Earth currently, not many, that are of a slightly different shape. They would look more like one of your ant insects, but they would still be walking on two legs and sometimes four, and they would have more of an ant-like appearance. That those were more of a genetic concoction of the gods, we will say. And you would say Anunnaki, but I also fall under that category too. So with this said, that those are more the genetic concoctions, like I said, about the Neanderthals. The original ones. There is a group of them left that do hang out in a different dimensional space, like myself. They too had to be rescued at one point because your paramilitary groups, all of these types of people, time traveling groups and everything attempted to exterminate them. So knowing that they would attempt to aid humanity. Now, they are very kind people, very generous people. The ones that are left in the original format of which I spoke of, they too, maybe they may even speak to this at some point. They speak to very few people in this respect. They're a little timid, and I can't say as I blame them. They hang out in a place that looks very much like a how can I explain it? And no, Isaac, it is not a hill of dung like some of them you would expect. No, they are not dung beetles. No, that's a different group. This is they are actually inside of a pocket that has a cave system, very much like how you would expect parts of the Sahara Desert to look like with the sand dunes, but it is buried deep down within. There is systems of water and openings that they could get sunlight down within. They do exactly as what you'd expect ants to do, but just people versions of them. This not many people know completely the true story, even though the term ant friend, of course, was translated back from Anunnaki. So a lot of these different groups fall under that, but what people traditionally think of Anunnaki would be the traditional god pantheons, but that word was regurgitated over and over again. But this particular group, they are still alive and kicking. If I had to say a population density of them, they, give or take, there are a few million of them in their pocket. So any rumors of them being extinct, the ones you're seeing in the dwindling numbers would be the ones that were created, not that any life form is any lesser or greater than another. That is a sad tale as well, whereas they were sometimes created as a workhorse. And they would be quite abused actually. Now, on a funny note, where some of these ant people were depicted would surprise you. You know that particular animated series Futurama? You know the Native American-like people that were on Mars in that sequence? That was depicting them to a certain extent in a ha-ha sort of way. That were very much like that. And also they helped out Native Americans, and the Native Americans took on some of their cultural traits. So, and also some from an ancient Mayan group too, from Lemuria and from outer space as well. So, voila, you have a
It's
mix.
said that the Hopi tribe still is in communication with the ant people.
Yes, in their pocket, yes. They are communicating from within that dimensional space I aforementioned to the Hopi people, yes. So that is entirely accurate, yes. So I can go into questions.
Well, just to follow up on the one we're talking about, because I know before we aired, actually we did air that Arkheim was bringing up some questions. And I think one of the things that has been left bothering you, because you were saying, Arkheim, that you felt so bad because you were under the impression that basically one of the projects went in and was trying to completely annihilate the group.
Well, it wasn't that they had to get rid of them all, is that from what I recall, they existed in um basically like the Pacific Northwest, in the mountains around here. Like there's Mount St. Adams, Mount St. Helens, um, and I recall there being basically an operation to get rid of them because we wanted to build roads through there. There's certain things we wanted to do, and they had their own territory, and they were emphatic about the fact that they didn't want to let us build anything there. They wanted it to be theirs and be respected as that, and they didn't want to share that space with us because we don't know. Well, I would say it's because we don't respect the land, but I guess that's me just kind of assuming things. But I just remember that I don't remember for sure exactly why, but I mean it's kind of implied. Like we just wanted to get them out of the way to chop down trees and use the land and build things up. And so that was something that happened. Not exactly sure the time period, but I do know that happened. And I know they weren't just in the Pacific Northwest, but I had an experience where I went to go camping here, and it was on Mount St. Adams, and I connected with the memories of that, and also the sort of resonant frequency of what was once there. I guess sort of like the ghost of what happened.
Mhm. Yes, you are seeing correctly, Arkham. The ghosts that are there, people have spotted this particular energy there, and have also felt immense sadness there in some of those areas as a result. If you get in the correct spots, excuse, clear something, because somebody does not want this information said. Even though at the moment there is a strong dark elf presence, what you would call dark elves, in the Shasta Adams area. Then, in the time frame before, there were those particular ant people, and they wanted to keep that area intact. They were holding the space. They were holding the space, knowing who would want to occupy that. So, what you saw, Arkham, was actually within a time travel program, and the within that time frame that you saw them, it was actually pre. What'd you say? How can I put this? Pre that of the Dark Elf invasion. This, unfortunately, eliminating them gave rise to the Dark Elves pulling their shenanigans, let's say. The Dark Elves are responsible for setting off Mount St. Helens to begin with. So they used a particular bomb that canceled out the matter on the side of the mountain, therefore ripping loose all the pressure underneath. This was not only to destroy part of the area, part of the human settlement, but and cause a false flag and cause a big to do. More so, it was to eliminate any remaining ant encampments in the area that were survivors post that ancient period. You actually saw one that was more close to now, but you also were in a time travel project that went into the ancient times as well, because some of the forces that exist in the now wanted their ancient enemies destroyed. So, with that said, the forces that are there now within Shasta and Adams, Adams has less of the nefarious. They have a few extra good and bad and ugly all in between. Shasta has a dark elf and military entrenchment within it that like to perform light shows for people every now and again, using extremely ancient tech that was on those spots during the time of the Lemurian, the last Lemurian, the Lemurian time frame. Now, that would be roughly 15,000 years ago. So, with that said, Sufas was actually, at that time, he was, although the elder in Arizona, he was actually only a few hundred years old at that time, but quite a youngin at that point. Everybody is actually young compared to my age. But anyway, except Chrome, he's actually far older, and he's literally older than dirt. So, because he grew up with the dirt forming. So, as a Titan would go. In this particular way, though, the ant people that are even still occupying certain areas further north are being protected by our people. But the ones that knew that there were ghosts of them there, you are not wrong. The ghosts still linger, just like some of our people.
Mhm. It's
The
kind of like Civil War battlegrounds and stuff like that. It very much had that kind of vibe. Like a battle occurred there, a lot of death, a lot of carnage, a lot of just like bad vibes.
Yes, yes, you were picking up on that ancient time because there was a variation of yourself in that time frame. You see, you
Hmm.
were walking your own footsteps. So
Yeah, that is
this.
kind of what it was like.
Mhm.
Um, now you mentioned Mount St. Helens, and a lot of us in the truth or conspiracy theory X-Files type community had heard reports a long time ago that the U.S. military kind of like finding forest people and either triaging them out or even executing them. But there were no reports of the ant people, and so this is very interesting. Do you know if the military, the U.S. was like the secret program, space programs or whoever, were they also there to find ant people and to for genetic experimentation or whatever?
Yes, you are actually correct in that, Brian. Our people were protecting theirs at that time. So we are actually we were being confronted by your military at that time, and the Dark Elves just prior to this Mount St. Helens explosion got your military to reactivate and the explosive under the mountain that came from the extreme ancient war time frame. That would be again the Lemurian Atlantean conflict. They were the two that invented these friggin' bombs. So, that said, there are still some in the world that have gone unexploded and inactive at the moment. Not many, but there are still remnants from those time frames. Again, your triangles.
So,
The,
so I'm sorry to interrupt there. So is that like because when you look at Mount St. Helens, it almost looks like that side of the mountain just vaporizes, and I guess that's not typical of your any other volcanic type explosion. If not for that weaponry, you wouldn't see it kind of melt away the way it appears to from some of the footage.
yes, this is similar to your 9/11 discussion where the building actually melted. It's similar to this because guess who taught those people how to make those weapons? So it's similar only to the human capacity to create, you see. So with the other bomb, it was actually one from the period that was activated and set off. But the Dark Elf, you call them Dark Elves, showed the government at the time how to activate it. And they couldn't do it because the energy wasn't there. But human, let's just say, meat puppets, you would say at the time, decided that it was a good idea to set this thing off and destroy a lot in the area. But the bomb was so old, you see, it only took out one target. They could be networked back in the day along an Earth grid and take out an entire area. That's where you get stories about your big one earthquake in California. It's this same clan trying to cause a disaster through not only co-creation, but they're trying to win a war that is long since dead. So they have not forgotten this. They are the descendant lineages, but also in your own history, you have descendant lineages that don't remember why they're fighting either. So this is exactly what happened. They just knew they didn't want us there. They knew they didn't want the ant people there. The ant people, unfortunately, some of them were taken into your projects, as were some of our own people. As were some of the dogmen, and the dogmen had probably been next to the ant people, probably the most abused. Unfortunately, they can go into that at some point. But in this particular instance, this is what caused that explosion. When that canceled out on the side of the mountain, pulled all of that matter loose, and along with some of your government's help, they with a certain other almost like an acidic napalm nanotechnology woven into it. It aided in reactivating the original bomb, which then created the more of the original canceling out effect. They perfected this particular technology later, and voila, that's what they used on your 9/11.
With the Dark Elves, are these like renegade Palladians who hybridize with Draco reptilians, and that's who you're referring to as the Dark Elves, and these are like the Telosians living under Mount Shasta? Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, the Telosians living around Shasta, yes. You have that correct. Yes, is there some reptilian there? Yes, but you're dealing with a mix of let's see, Syrian and Orion DNA, as well as even some Lanyalosian DNA in there, because that's where technically elves come from, and they're a type of elf. So you're dealing with one that was created as a servant race with all of those DNAs you mentioned, that also became a royal faction, which were a royal pain in the ass, actually, on Lemuria, when the original Lemurians had a council, you see, and this aristocracy uh, took over and created clans of reptilian elven type hybridic forms. These would be what you would call the blue bloods, you see, because their blood ran blue. They would have a blue complexion or a teal dark complexion, hence the dark elf look. These existed in the time of Odin, and guess what? It was not necessarily the Greys that created these. Your Odin actually created them. They had another name for them, the Gigi in your
GG.
Sumerian. So
Okay,
this is
those were the
a form of
GG.
a Gigi. Yes.
And the GG being they were like the laborers in that society.
And they broke loose from that society. You also had the Tuatha De Danann, which were the good elven types that also came from Lanulos as well. And their DNA was used in this. And the two factions warred. This is where you get your Lord of the Rings narrative from. Orion, like Sauron type. And then you have the elves fighting him over the One Ring, War of the Ring type of thing. This is essentially the story that Tolkien was tapping into from Ireland. You see, fairy elves versus their Fomorian or from Orion counterpart. So this, and also you have some orcs in there too that were essentially the hired muscle by evil in that, which again that would be Neanderthal. So these are Earth ages that he was picking up on. This is essentially what has been spoken about. Yes.
Ooh, go ahead.
The
Um,
Tanakh lineage, that again, as I've heard you correctly, the pocket that comes through in the Pleiades area.
Mhm.
So the one thing I think is hard for people to wrap their head around sometimes when we have these conversations is that we're so used to only thinking of human beings on this planet instead of really understanding that there's so many more, different races. And the one thing where everyone's talking about meeting up, becoming a part of the galactic community. Well, you come from the galactic community.
You are the
And
galactic community.
right, your what I tried to say before is, you have to open your minds to think that the originating Anakim, where you came from to come here, they, I'm assuming, participate in the Galactic Senate. They
Yes.
advocate for their colonists and
Yes.
their lineages that have now come here on Earth. And it's a much bigger picture than I think a lot of people can think about. So I just kind of wanted to expand that a little bit about, the races that came here to colonize, and then how they are involved with the galactic, Senate, and how they advocate for Earth.
Yes, to recap, some of my family members, you know them as Fuma, Simar, Morak, Murnak, and Sufoth. Especially Fuma and his brother Simar went out into went out to the Galactic Senate to actually try to advocate on behalf of Earth, as have I and several other of the Anunnaki lines have, and it falls on deaf ears because you have, like your Congress, and like the British Parliament, you have people that just float around in their little hover chairs, not like your government. I'm saying out there, if you had that on Earth, it would look weird, but out there you have these, like in your Star Wars Phantom Menace, the episode one.
Mhm.
You saw the Galactic Senate. That's exactly how this looks, and they have the little hover chairs, everything, and they can actually go out and actually speak to the entire crowd this way. Whoever wants to talk. We have representatives out there of ours as well, and I've shown up. They've shown up, and we talk. It always ends in the same argument with some of these other races. Some want it, some don't care, and some care immensely. So it always ends up that way, where there is never enough of a vote to open the whole thing up. Now, is the goal by some races to try to get Earth inducted into that? Yes, but what should happen is that you form your own really strong, unified base first, and that you create your own unity.
Okay.
When you do this, you have a strong enough platform to stand on your own 2 feet. Your 2 feet are flat and grounded to the earth, and you have enough information to work off of to be able to debate with these knuckleheads that scream and shout at each other all the time. You should see like the whole term as above, so below. You've heard this before
Mhm.
with your government, especially your parliament and your United States Congress and House of Representatives. It is so damn similar to how they are. It might as well be a mirror. And you have people that shout at each other constantly. Think of millions of worlds with voices that they come and go from the Senate, hoping to have something passed or something looked at. And anybody brings up the Earth issue, it's like in your Congress where sometimes they paperclip bills to something else that you don't particularly care about. If they don't want the Earth issue talked about, they will literally paperclip it to something else that people don't give a rat's butt about, or they will staple it to something or paperclip it to something that everybody hates. And that's the truth of it. You're dealing with a bunch of, let's just say, a whole Congress, let's just say, of Beavis and Buttheads. So, and I don't mean all of them. Some of them are
So
actually,
they like attach like issues to other issues and stuff like that to conflate things. That makes a lot of sense.
yes, and it's constant, and it gets on my nerves personally, and the Anakam Line's nerves personally, and the Mer people. They are quite perturbed with this as well. Because they know if Earth was joined in with the galactic community, and I don't mean forcibly brought into the Galactic Federation. That's what some other groups, a faction of them, have planned to where they're trying to get Earth up to the, let's just say, just up to the line of approval. Say if you're applying for a credit card or insurance, he likes to say, and you get somebody helps you get just above the line, just the minimum requirement to get a credit line. It's the same thing. Your cabal and your Martian Germans are attempting to vie for doing this, and other factions are attempting to either stop them or vie for the same thing. Or in case you have your valiant Thor as well, where he's attempting to help build a federation in your own system. And Injured Cold as well. Even though they're company men, they are attempting to find loopholes and things of that nature that will allow more of a sovereign space here. But this is how it is currently.
So,
The
so would you say like Valiant Thor is kind of like a general acting on behalf of the UN, and he personally feels strongly about liberating humanity, even though only a third about of his intergalactic UN cares, and the other two-thirds, one third is against liberating humanity, and another third could give a rat's ass, but from his position, and he'll use his agency to do what he can.
Yes, that's exactly it. His people have been in this system for a long time. So if you've heard of him coming from anywhere else, it's not true. They come literally. They were on Venus in different dimensional space that you would know in your Scandinavian myth as Vanaheim. During the times of Odin, as he was forming the nine realms, you have the Vanir and Aesir war. The current standing of the Venusian people are a mix of Vanir and Aesir DNA. So you have Asgardian and you have the original Vanir. So the current Nordic type race that originally then began to occupy that space is a mix of those two DNAs. That's why they look Scandinavian, you see, a lot of times. There are other races that mixed in after a while, and Venus is a port of call when it comes to some of the bureaucracy in the system. But Valiant Thor is one of those that try to spearhead fixing things like your business, politics, religion, things of that nature, to try to not upgrade it. That is the wrong choice of words. It's more like fix some of the indoctrinative dogma that the Orions decided to plant in a long time ago. Not that there isn't good things about some of these spaces, or academia, another one. As you can see, your academic structure, the way it is a slight pain in the ass when it comes to the alien topic, you say.
Oh, we hate it. Dr. Courtney Brown and the Farsight Institute can attest to that, and having to battle to even introduce the ET question into academia without being laughed out of tenure. I wanted to ask, if I may, about you talk about the Orion Grays, and I've heard of the Orion Group, and then I've heard of the Draco Orion Empire, and then I've learned through communications with the Draco Reptilian Queen, who is against the Draco Empire being subsumed by the Black Goo.
Hmm. You are getting, yes, pieces of true pieces of information. You have different factions at work as well. You have, like with the Orions, for instance, I'll actually start from the beginning. You have Orion Greys, the shriveled up, scrotum-esque like forms that walk around with
Oh my, that's
Uh,
so
s-
rude.
the scrotum Greys. Those are different from the meat-eating Mitra Greys, who are the Greys crossed with the Draco with the sharp teeth who eat
it.
people.
That is different. That is a genetic abomination, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
So that and great offense to them, because I know at some point they can hear me. Now, you have another creepy abomination, which is the aquatic Draco, which is quite scary, actually. And they sit again in a pocket, like what I do. They can
And,
control
and
weather and all that. So yeah.
Christopher and Joanna, or no, it's Christopher and Buddy did a spontaneous live cast about the aquatic Draco. Apparently, they're similar to the monsters from the Jeeper Creepers movies, and
Mm.
they're really nasty. And then there's a lot of them. Not to sow fear, we can deal with them, but it's better to be aware of them so that we can.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yes, they are literally around the area of your Devil's Triangle, and they are literally in another fractured pocket. This it's not necessarily Introverse. Introverse is the worlds within worlds. That is your nesting doll. They literally have created something of themselves that sits outside of that, and there's millions of them, but they can't really come in except through mind fuckery, you would say. And every now and again, one comes through, and then your military and them have to deal with it. But with the Orions, you have your Orion Greys, then you have other groups that were eventually created, like some white elf type groups. That he calls them Lancaneers. They're these white elf looking type ones. You have also those are essentially the tall whites in Charles J. Hall's material. And you have also the groups on Lonulus, which they come from there, and you have the intermixed peoples and descendant lineages of both of Cassiopeia and you have some Pleiade, you have some Lyra, and you have Tall White that are also elven, half elven type people, and groups of like Indrid Cold with some Nordic as well in there. If you went to Lonulus, you would see a multitude of colors and heights. And Indrid's more the pure type esque, beyond the pure white type ones. He's 7 feet tall. Then you have ones like Elena and Vesa that are the shorter one. But also with the Orions, you have the Orion Greys, then you have some of the elongated skull types, like your Akhenaten and people such as this. Some of them are the elven groups too. People mix these two up. You have Orion, more interest, engineerish type, like Akhenaten. Then you also have other ones that are engineerish type, but they have more emotional attachment to them. You see, you have ones that the DNA was stolen, they were created over here. Then you have the more older race, the Tuatha De Danann, which is also they were created as well, but much further back. Then you have some of the reptilian races, your Draco like raptor types. You have your white royals. You have your aquatic Draco, which those were essentially created a long time ago in your Paleolithic period by not just Orion but different galactic races as well, and also time traveling races such as some of your Orion Greys because they cut across space time. And what they did is this particular race carved out their own pocket and stayed put, and they were dormant for a long period of time until recent, which they're being dealt with as we speak, and quite favorably, I might add. But also the Draco Queen that you were talking about, yes, they have their own royalty. And this may shock some people, what I'm about to say about that grouping. The you have the whole some of the ones in Egypt. You have the some of the ones in some of your Scandinavian mythology. You have some of the ones in your biblical and Grecian mythology. But that particular royal line, if you looked at one of them, you would see the scales of a reptilian, but you would see also the face of a cat. And this is also where you get some of the Lyran lineages from, you see. Also dragons as well. You have cats and dragons that are essentially the same. There are good dragons. He has encountered good actual dragons, and I will distinguish between Draco and dragon. You have the cat piss smelling Draco, sulfur like demon like ones that live underground like troglodytes and make people kill each other with their telepathy and raptor type and shitheads like that. Then you have dragons that actually help and aid humanity. Some have been easily controlled and manipulated, while others are more than happy to help people and talk to them. This queen you speak of falls somewhere in between, more sometimes more or less with her own interests, but at the same time, there have been alliances formed that probably either A shouldn't have or B should not have remained. They were better off suiting themselves in some corner of the earth somewhere. But that is as far as I know with them.
Excellent. May I ask, speaking of, so as far as when we talk at the pyramids of Egypt, for example, or all these pyramids, and they're arrayed like the Orion belt, right? And so that's like the Orion group. You are kind of going through, there's lots of different beings who comprise this Orion group, but are there any particular beings who are overall in charge of the Orion group? Like for the pecking order, would it be like the Draco reptilians would be the top and then the Orion Greys underneath them and then everyone else? Or what does that look like, if I may?
The Orion Greys, they were the original progenitors. They are still around, but it's mainly their creations that have overrun them in some areas, like the White Elves or some of the Draco. Now, when it comes to the pyramids, the Great Pyramid was actually part of Atlantis. Parts of Africa, like your Eye of Sahara, that was the city of Atlantis, and it went out into the Atlantic Ocean, you see, when Enlil destroyed parts of this in his pursuit to destroy his brother, Enki. This is what caused a lot of the disaster in Egypt, where the sand was turned to green glass.
Pass.
This is from the nuclear weapons that Enlil dropped on the city, you see. And the pyramid at the time was actually a power generator. It still is. It can still function if somebody would turn the damn switch on. The one in Alaska is actually still active from that time frame, but that pyramid was around at that time, then was retrofitted later on by a group of elven type engineers. They attempted to retrofit it around the year 8000, and they began to retrofit it to be a more of a hydrogen type of generator. The humans that existed at that time decided that these new people were scary that came out from underground and dimensionally, and they wanted to kill them all. And they did. These people that were in the pyramid at that time were akin to your dwarven people that were in your Skyrim or Elder Scrolls mythology, whereas they were the creators of the mechanized machines and all this. And essentially the same also goes with the dwarves of the Bifrost as well. These guys were essentially an elven engineering type of group. You would see them as more Vulcan types, logical in nature, just like the ones, the Dunmer in your Skyrim lore, the fictional lore. So this is essentially them, and these humans killed them and took all the metal and turned it into weapons and jewelry. Now, around also your Stonehenge, around a similar time frame, there were some elven people killed by some more barbaric type humans up around your Stonehenge. That's why you see the elongated skull type people with axe wounds in the back of their head.
May I ask about Stonehenge? Because on the one hand, you're citing Stonehenge and the Druid history there. And then on the other hand, there's imagery of Stonehenge being like put together. It's a fake monument. And so what is the reality? Was there a real Stonehenge and then they've recreated it with like the fake stuff, or what happened there?
As I said before, layers in history. Whereas if you really wanted to build propaganda about your enemy, would you not do it over the centuries? Though there is an actual portal network, it was a portal hub on a ley line intersection there, you see, where in the Great Pyramids the same way, it was a portal station in and out. So the look you're seeing is exactly how it would have looked, except it was added onto. There are remnants of the original still there underground and partially above, but they wanted to make it look as though it had just been built. Very much like your Tartarian Empire, when they attempted to cover that up, now they make it look like it was nothing more than a band of barbarians. So this is the same thing. They're trying to make it look like something was made up, when in fact there's ancient technology that people walk past and drive past every single day right there in front of their face. It's the stone technology that is there. Unfortunately, they've also talked about this on your Outlander show with the stone portals. So I say unfortunately because she hates it with a burning passion. But what is it you called that show, Harlequin novel on acid? You called it. But they depict the stone technology correctly with that. You don't necessarily always need a circle. You can have an archway, or like the torii gates in Japan. It's the same shape. The Ontumban race of Japan, actually, they're the proto-Japanese race, created those.
Those torii gates, basically that actual gate with like the left post and the right post, and then the top lintel, and then like the ornate little thing on the top. Those, what you're saying is they could use technology to basically make that into a portal, and then when you walk through it, you're going through just like turning a mirror into a portal, or the Montauk Project, putting a portal on the wall.
Yes.
And that's so then, because when I mean, there's a spiritual concept of the torii gate. So if when you walk through it, you're spiritually passing through a gate. But here you're indicating that there was times in ancient humanities past in Japan, for example, where those gates were literally more of like, no, a literal portal.
Yes, you are correct. And when they were in Japan, you see, they found certain grave sites that actually had a repeating command over and over again in ancient Japanese. And it's door open, door open, door open, over and over again in more of a computer-like coding, like you'd see the Matrix type of coding. This is exactly what they did is they would command the door to open and they would command it to a particular spot. Now, the ancient Bifrost was connected to this, whereas a certain emblem or symbol, like in your Stargate show, would depict a location. Like your Garden of Eden story with the angel with the flaming sword. That there was a portal there as well that would have that particular figure, which is Enlil, by the way, that would come and go. Now, with the Japanese ones, that particular coding that was on the gravesite that fell into mythology, that fell into legend, and they just saw that as just a repetitious spell command after a while. It was actually a voice command that was also in with tall white technology as well. They would base it on sounds and chirping noises. There is a gate in Peru that operates that way, where they would stick their large head into this thing and make a chirping noise and then go through it. This is why Charles J. Hall would say that the tall whites sounded like chirping birds, you see? So it was like that. They would use sound and just say it, or say a word or a command. The Untumbans would say a command in their language, and it would usually mean open door or door open. And that's where the mythology around those portals came from.
Are the Intomans the Olmec looking people with like the really broad faces and their broad noses that they did the statues of, like the Olmecs or the Toltecas, or is this different?
It's slightly different, even though the two did cross paths. There was another race that you would just call them an ancient Mayan type race that came from the Pleiades. And this is where also some of your Lemurian descent lineage also came from. The Olmec heads are more depicting some of those people. Usually cargo runners, by the way, some of the cargo running type of ones would be more built and bigger. And also there were giants that were that big as well in the Mayan as well as the Untumbans had larger people, that those heads are actually the actual size of the person to scale. So that was depicting them. Those particular heads then became conduits. They carved them based on channeling, the same as him doing this with myself, creating an edifice by which those particular beings could communicate with some of their descent lineage. You have the Japanese that have done the same. You have the Chinese that have done the same. Pretty much every culture on your planet has done the same, depicting those that came before. But in Japan, they made it more literal, like they revere the ancestry, and they actually have statues that depict those particular lines. You say so, like your Abe no Seimei, for instance, he was one of those. He
And
was.
and by doing that, by doing these statues and the busts and the depictions and the sigils, for example, even on a gateway and saying depicting like through a rune where you want to go, that is essentially creating a quantum entanglement.
Yes,
And
a particular letter or number will have a particular frequency, you see. And if you have a frequency by which then that particular letter or number attributes to over here instead of here, then that creates that quantum entanglement and therefore creates the doorway, you see. This is what your ancient Bifrost is. That particular bit of technology bound the nine realms in a gigantic quantum entanglement, even though Asgard blew up. I'll say newly formed, but it's not newly formed. Its pocket is all around within your introverse, and the Bifrost is actually linking through the Earth through the middle ground, or you would call it Midgard, guarding the middle ground. This is what Earth is. You are literally in the middle of all of these dimensional frequencies. And basically what you would say is everything everywhere, all at once, including your multiverse passes through as well, all together at once, around a large tree, as it were. You would see it as the Yargzadrill tree. It's been spoken about before other recordings, but is essentially all those timelines wound into a big tree and its roots. That's essentially what the timelines look like. Hmm? Any questions? No?
I'm gonna, have you guys thought of any more questions?
I know Arkheim had a
That
couple, and I
that
want to
that
hit the
lines up
drones.
with just what I feel instinctually, and just I feel like it makes a lot of sense with the way time works and how it operates and looks, and yeah, a lot of really fascinating information.
Yes, thank you.
So
Yes.
Arkim, you had spoken earlier before, because I know we kind of got off on more of a galactic history conversation, but I think you had spoken before that you didn't feel you knew a whole lot about the forest people. So any just generalized questions come to mind that you'd want to know about?
Um, are you guys in fourth or fifth density or something like that?
You would call it this. There really isn't a number attributed to this. It is, again, it's more like the winding tree. But in this instance, where I personally am located, if you were to come to that spot, and this applies to Asgard as well, if you were to come to this spot, your energy, your body would not be able to handle the energy. It would feel extremely overwhelming, and you would probably burn out, like being
Yeah.
dark.
And this seems to be a common theme when we interact with different beings where there's an energy difference. Sometimes people say that that is part of the reason why people even forget encounters that they have with certain beings. It's not necessarily even because the being stepped in and made them forget. It's because they stepped into such a different energetic space that when they step out of it, when their mind readjusts, it's like it forgets. Like
Mhm.
for instance, even I've heard of some experiments where it was when humans were first testing out some of these craft to go certain places, and I can't remember what it was. It was like the guy had put like stones or sand in his pocket or something like that in order to be able to remember where he went, because otherwise he would like forget. And he needed that. He would physically take something in order to ground his memory when he got back so that he wouldn't forget it. So,
Yes,
yeah.
that is true. Most people attribute it to mind wipes, which, yes, that has happened. Like he remembers being on Lanulos in some memories in that particular dimensional frequency. What was explained to him was, yes, their government does do mind wipes, but also within a particular frequency, also when he channels, he doesn't always remember because the energy is way up, you see. So that's why recording is very helpful. But with this, though, you are correct. It is essentially also, he always attributes it to a Fantasy Island episode where Rourke's daughter comes to the island and she remembers all that came before. But when she leaves, she doesn't remember. That's an actual thing, what you just said. Within the frequency, you build encoding and decoding as you go along. The brain remembers this. When you cross back over into a frequency that is slower moving, you call it higher and lower, but it's actually faster and slower, whereas the molecules are faster moving, even by a little bit. It would seem like a leap to some of you on Earth at the moment. You go there, formulate memories, and then you come back. You begin to forget some of those things. And also, of course, government mind wipes and ET mind wipes do not help. This will change in the coming years, but if I have anything to say about it anyway, it's a bit of abuse. He calls it abuse, but in this, the the frequency difference makes all the difference. There are some things that even all of you have spoken to each other that moments later you don't remember because it's spoken in a particular frequency. People have done this. They will go into a room and forget why they walked in there. That is timeline changes. Where you may not may have gone in there in a particular for a particular reason, in a particular idea, and it's no longer valid, or something is mentally messing with you, or that's also attributed to alien abduction as well. But on topic, the point is you were in a particular frequency of creativity, let's just say. And when people create art in those frequencies, it sends those waves outward. That's why certain art affects you in a particular way because it's in that moment of time, in the now moment or in the moment of non-time. It is more akin to the realms by which some people are bringing it in from, and also they're bringing it in from a place they have either been or came from to begin with. or it might be based on a trauma, and it also speaks volumes for change within your society, like some form of either physical or energetic rebellion. In either case, you're connecting to either something that must be corrected, or you're connecting to somewhere where you have come from or have been, if this makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yes. Uh,
It takes some songs take you outside of time and space.
Yeah, that's makes sense why we use it for Montauk and for mind control programming. But also there's been strange phenomenon where I guess this would make a kind of a good time to tell a story. There's a guy who I have the pleasure of relaying his stories, but unfortunately he's not public. He's just called the Montauk drummer. Preston Nichols used to talk about him in his book, but apparently he was hanging out with Preston at one point when they were listening to a song, and it was a song that, and this was like in the here and now, not during the Montauk project, and it was a song that he had played the drums on for the month and during the Montauk project, and there's all this weird time dilation stuff going on with him and this song because of when it was recorded, and then it was sent through time and all this weird stuff. And anyway, he said that a portal started opening up. And he said, yeah, Preston, he was a slow moving, like fat slob. But he's like, I've never seen that man move so fast in his life to get up and unplug the stereo. It terrified him. Like,
mm,
and
you hit.
I'm sorry, I can't help but take jabs at Preston. But yeah, it's kind of common for people to do that because he was such a mean man to certain individuals. But
Mhm.
maybe I shouldn't stoop to that level. But no, it opened up a portal. That's basically the story. I just felt bad about being a bully sort of after I said it, even if it is Preston Nichols.
Yeah, well, this you are actually true about him, but in this instance, what happened? Since that site is so enriched, especially around, oh, I shouldn't say enriched, but around Camp Hero, where the portals were open quite prolifically. What has occurred with this, with certain musical pitches, tones, like what I said about the tall whites and their technology, it's the gate of Amara Muru in Peru, by the way, that will open in a whistle or a set of pitches. You might
Is,
remember.
is that is that the gate where the guy was being chased by the conquistadors and ran up to it and put his hand up to it and then disappeared
Yes,
in a
that is
flash of blue
exactly
light?
it. Yes, that is exactly it. Yes.
Now,
That is,
did he have to do a chirping or a whistle sound, or did they open it for him?
he had to do a chirping whistle on one. It is actually locked on the other end, so you have to do a particular whistle. There's one in your state of Nevada as well, in your Valley of Fire as
No,
well.
I fire.
But there's actually a couple of them there.
And
But
and that's to get to Lanalos?
yes, yeah, that's exactly it. The portal down in Peru does the same. It goes exactly there. Now, with what you were saying, Arkeem, the reason the portal opened up was for the same reason. Certain pitches and tones. It's like you might remember in your original Star Trek series where Kirk opened his communicator and that trap door opens under that ancient piece of technology and he falls downstairs. It's the same thing. The technologies will respond to particular pitches and tones, even though that wasn't the same tone that somebody else would have used. It was close, or it was the exact one from the piece of technology. Some people also open portals without realizing it in their own home. Say he goes and does trench working and closes portals in someone's home. Sometimes they will play a song or open a video or look at something and a particular pitch hits and a portal opens that is on a little finite vein from a long time ago, you see, and will open a doorway that something comes through. And that can be shut and that can be stitched. Quantum stitches or quantum cracks are the same way. Like you see a Doctor Who in your Matt Smith area with the cracks in the universe, those are quantum cracks. And not like incursions like in your Marvel Cinematic Universe or Doctor
Right.
Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. It's not like that. It is actually in the fabric of reality. It's a type of portal, but like a crack, and they have to be quantumly stitched. And he does that. He's done that work too. But the point is, certain sounds, certain energy frequencies, either created by people, by saying certain words, doing certain things, or technology, will open these doorways. It just happened to be with the music, Arkham there. It just happened to be both because it was created by human, but at the same time, it was also being projected by technology. So it was both in that way.
how are you connecting to all these pop culture references? Is it through Christopher?
Yes, his brain is slightly redundant and stores these things, and I pull them out little by little as
Yeah.
I'm talking.
Parables, stories, they always help people understand things.
Yes, he has them stored in his mind, and we use these as references as well. Even though I have seen these things, he has seen them more up close, and so therefore he is a walking file cabinet of. Some people would say this is useless information, but it is not. It is actually disclosure in the media through both video games and movies and television.
So
So
all you Stargate nerds, you listen up. You've been doing okay. It's this, yeah, a PhD you foregone. You save yourself a lot of money, and you learn the real stuff.
Well, it's
yes,
funny, just to interject, that you say that because Chris and I have really enjoyed over the past years. We've actually gone back to look at a lot of these old series. And, I have to, sometimes I'm aghast because when I see some of it, I have a very human response and I'm like, well, people are going to think we're lying because they're going to say we got it from the TV show, but I'd never seen the TV show. And just am amazed now with the knowledge that we have, how much of it intentionally, unintentionally was inspired to come through, however it happened. How much is out there, disclosure in the media and the video games. It's amazing.
hmm
Well, one of the weirdest ones for me recently was I'm from Appleton, Wisconsin, and I've talked about how my life is sort of like artificial setup. So there's something weird about it, something off about it. And the in that show, the agents want to leave the programs because they're tired of like having to run and hide and fight in wars and be spies and things like this. So they want to memory wipe themselves and go to Appleton, Wisconsin. And it's so weird. They have like fake identities they make themselves and stuff like that to mind wipe themselves and live a normal life in Appleton, Wisconsin. And they say just what I say, like, oh, like no one will find us there. It's like an isolated place and like what has everything you need. It's perfect. And I won't say it's like isolated, but it kind of is if you know the area. It's like everything's pretty spread out in Wisconsin, I guess would be the best way to say it. It's not that there's like no population, it's populated, but everything's really spread out and it creates little microcultures where do you ever hear really about Appleton, Wisconsin on the news? Not really, right? Like I don't know, it's just not just a quiet little town that nobody really talks about. So I just thought that was strange, and I do kind of feel like it almost feels like it's like what you said or something like that. Like they're trying to put it out there so that I sound crazy I don't know, or maybe it's to make me not sound
Well,
crazy.
are you able to get a read on what Arkheim is saying? Would you say that the creators of that show were referencing Arkheim and Kat directly, or other fellow
Oh, they definitely
My
were.
Labs
That's
people?
yes, so yes, you are correct actually on both of your accounts. They're referencing a broader swath of people that have come and gone from a place like Appleton, Wisconsin, you see, and other places similar to it, where they will pick a place that is, I don't want to say nondescript, that's disrespectful. It is more of it doesn't get as much traffic, and then yeah, wipe their own memories and stay put. But it doesn't mean that they wouldn't have a queue to bring or clue to bring those memories back, you see, if need be. So they would just live a normal life and retire, you see. Like in your Men in Black where they'd wipe their memories at the end, like Kay did I believe the first one. And so
it's
it's
been a while since
essentially
I watched it.
yes, it's essentially the same difference, you see.
But it's used both ways, isn't it? Because I think the one thing that Arkeem was saying, and I, my, initial fear is that what we also know is you've gotten some things that have been able to become about in movie and industry because both sides are satisfied, meaning
A yield,
you can have, we call it the yield, yeah, where you can have, truths being said, but also a mechanism to tampen down things where you're feeling like, wow, there's truth being said, but if I say this is exactly how it is, then people are just going to say I'm crazy and I've invented, I'm just living in the
Yeah.
show.
No,
So,
it does feel like that, and that one was weirdly specific. Like even like inside jokes with my friends being mentioned and stuff like.
Hmm.
So that's why I just kind of said that I'm positive it was trying to show me something or clue
Yes,
me
this
into
was a
something.
synchronicity that spirit was and your oversoul were attempting to show you. Yes.
so from what, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if something has changed, but the information that we had been receiving in the past is that we're not at a place where it's just pure, let's just say benevolent disclosure of things. There's kind of what we call the yield in it so that it could be utilized either way. And so, with again, people that would hold on to it and you say your story and they'd say you're just crazy, you're just holding on to the story. That right now, and again, you can correct me if I'm wrong or agree with me, that right now, a lot of these things that are still making their way out in public are kind of part disclosure, but part, let's call it narrative or yield or how I'm not sure.
Varying percentages of yield. There has been nothing, virtually nothing that has not been yieldized, but that is actually beginning to change. Whereas there's a bit of BS mixed with truth. So there are places on the planet that are designated. I don't want to say neutral. That's the wrong choice of words. It is more or less a yield type environment, but also there are some areas that are just not really utilized except by those that just want to be left alone as well. Just like my descendant lineages, they carve out little realms, just like I carved out a little realm or carve out their own little space where they are left alone. They're isolated. So Appleton, Wisconsin, is actually a bit of both in that respect. Don't no mean to oust them here, but there are other places on the planet or in your country that are like that. There was even some spots he went through in Nebraska that are one of them. He would always I'm saying this to him as well as I'm saying this. He would go to see his friend in Columbus, Nebraska from Lincoln. He would pass through a place called Brainerd, and he always thought the name was a little weird. That would be one of those places. There's crime there, but at the same time, there are those living in those outlying areas that are the same as Appleton, Wisconsin.
Also, something that we found out is ton. So Arlington, Appleton, some of these places with those last names, it's a signifier of there being a deep underground military base and
And
there
yard as
being
well. Yard as well, like Brainyard or Brainard, but it started out as yard. So anything with ard on the end as well has things as well. So ton, yes, you are correct on that. There are military bases under all the ones that say ton. Yes, that's where the yield comes in, by the way. Uh, so
and then there's clones in most of these bases of the people that are on the surface and all sorts of very strange timeline manipulation going on through the with the people's lives. And it's very like it feels like you're in the Truman Show. Like they're planning out your life, staging events, making sure you get places at certain times or whatever, like
Well,
kind of
I
like a
don't think,
combination between the Truman Show and the Adjustment Bureau.
yes,
well,
yes.
it's true, but this actually segues, I think, actually into a current present moment event that everyone's looking at, like what in the world's going on, and are we on the Truman Show? Are we being watched to see how we react to it? Which
That's
happens
sometimes what
to,
it feels like.
yes, and I think right now everybody's like, I don't know how to react to this, and it is really regarding this whole drone situation.
How
And
can we not talk about it, right?
yeah,
Right.
so I mean, I know there is a fine line, again, we don't want to cause any problems for anyone here. It is an interesting dynamic that, I've even said, if you throw I'm always like, you throw every possibility on the board, everything you can think of, and see what sticks. And one of the things that I always am like, well, obviously they're trying to see how the public will react. That's one thing that's obviously going on.
Because in some instances these are not drones. Some of them are ET, Some of them are your military with high advanced tech. Others are distractions. But you're dealing with at least three different things here. And also, where he saw rumors earlier, one had been shot down. That was not completely true. That again, that was a distraction that was posted, and people are basically saying, "Oh, we're going to
What
shoot."
about the videos of them shooting at each other and stuff? Is that real?
In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. There's a lot of disinformation out there.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's really hard to figure out is because, okay, some of these videos are totally real.
Mhm.
And then, of course, you always got the charlatans who want to put out their clickbait and get more views. And they put out similar AI videos, all while these real videos are being put out. And then it muddies the waters. And then it
Yes.
makes people question the whole thing. And so that's a big problem, I guess, we have to contend with is the fact that there's all this, yeah, as usual, big surprise, a bunch of disinformation surrounding the matter.
Yes, yes. And also to distract against some of the ET presence as well, that do not conform to that narrative, you see. So you have some that are sometimes they try to make themselves seen briefly, and some have been doing this more and more leading up to this. You have military. Most of what you're seeing are your military, like with some of the Tic Tacs and things of that nature. Then you have some dimensional craft, and you have the actual alien craft. Then you have because you have a blockade in your system that prevents a lot of the ET craft. But the thing it is, though, if you have a portal that you can jump into and jump here and jump out of, that makes life a lot easier and more interesting for your solar warden because you come in behind them. So even though they're expecting things in the front, they think the door is locked behind them. No. It's far from locked, by the way. There's so many doors with so many different keys, you can't lock them all.
There are
With
many doors, Ed Boy. I don't
Mhm.
know, I don't know if you know about Ralph, the Ralph and the Ralph memes. Sorry, I couldn't help it.
Exactly, exactly. And what you are seeing, some of them that are flying really high, some of the drones that are flying really, really high, some of those are not drones. Some of them are ET related, like I said. Some of them are your military, and some of them are just plain disinformation and distraction. You're dealing with all of the above.
Is there a Project
So everybody
Bluebeam?
is right.
Yeah,
Like in the in the community, all these people are like, "Oh, this is happening. Oh,
it's
this
all
is
of it.
happening." It's kind of all of it. Yeah, it's all of the above.
Right, and it goes along with what we say about, we call it the yield. Any opportunity or anything that comes up, that potentially could be meaningful, following along right there with it is going to be the core that's meant to throw out the mass amount of disinformation, misinformation, muddy the waters, everything we talked about. That is a bona fide strategy, you know what I mean? And people, this is what they do, for a living, basically, to try and muddy the waters or
I'm just wondering what they're
dilute
gonna do.
information.
Like, what are they gonna say? Like, because they have to give us some sort of explanation. They can only stall for so long. They have to tell us something.
So,
And something tells me too that when the change happens of presidency, if it doesn't come out already before then, it's going to come out then, I feel like. So I'm just kind of like just waiting, like what is really going on?
so let me phrase it this way, because our understanding before, and again, you can comment on what I'm saying. Our understanding again is there's always been in the playbooks, and then there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, go keep going, and then double digit it as far as a planned, let's just call it disclosure. The planned one, the one that they want everyone to accept as the true
And
history.
anything outside of that is considered an anomaly and has to be course corrected.
So in general, when you may have let's just call it a rogue that may be trying to, change a little bit of the narrative, then they're going to take a minute, where are we at? Plan A? No, we got to throw that out. Plan B, plan C. How are we going to then address this dialogue within this planned narrative that we are trying to slowly bring out into humanity? And so I think part of it, again, I really do believe they're waiting to see how humanity accepts what's going on, because it will give them an idea of what they can do. I hate to say this, what they can do to humanity, what humanity is willing to tolerate, right? So part of it is testing the waters to see
Well,
how.
also, I feel like it's testing to see our reaction, to see are we gonna react violently, or are we gonna freak
Correct.
out?
That's exactly what I mean.
Like shooting them down or leaving it alone.
Right, or paying attention, or how easily can we distract?
Or if you ignore it, or if you pay attention.
Right. All of this is meaningful information on how you then steer people in a society psychologically, how you move them around.
Too. Yeah, discerning the situation too. So there is a test going on here.
Yeah, it's been pretty wild to see like the media go from kind of trying to water it down, because that's what they were doing at first. And I guess there's still certain outlets. I was talking to one of my friends yesterday. I guess NPR is still trying to water it down, but there's a lot of outlets who are just kind of flat out being like pretty out in the open, and the politicians are helping. Some of these local politicians are helping steer this narrative. The media kind of can't help it. The politicians are being interviewed by them, and this is what they're saying flat out. So maybe that's part of it. Maybe it's really the politicians pulling this all along, but they're basically saying these guys are inept. Like, I watched this New Jersey politician, not sure his name, doesn't really matter, but I commend him for how outward and honest he was. He walked out in the middle of the thing, and then he got interviewed, and they're like, "Why are you walking out?" And he's like, "Because I drove hours, out to this meeting, thinking, oh, you're gonna give me answers, and I found out they held the meeting to tell me they don't have any answers." It's like, what, how these people are stupid. Like, what is the like, you know what I mean? It's politics as usual. Like,
some are aware and some are not. The ones that are not are usually the ones getting railroaded or run around. The ones that do, the ones that do know, are the ones that are driving the narrative. You will see a distinct difference between the ones of the outliers and the ones driving the narrative. The ones that are the outliers are the ones like what you just said, Arkheim, or at least not completely in on the big club. Let's just say, like your George Carlin would say. Now, the ones that are in that know about it are the ones that are more stoic and straightforward about it, or here's option B, the ones that are outright making up crap about it, like the one that said it came from Iran. So that's that. You see, so
The Iranian mothership.
yes, that's the one. That's definite a BS yielder.
Yeah, even
So,
even the Pentagon came out and said that's BS.
Yeah, that one's because he's a misinformation agent, you see. So the other one, though, the other New Jersey politician, you can tell again he was an outlier because he did not genuinely know what was going on. They're not all.
Yeah, he was like a more low level politician, but I have a feeling that moment will propel his career along a bit further, because it's like people like people who actually stand up for shit. That's the kind of people I want to vote for, and I think everybody wants to vote for. So I think but from what I recall, he was fairly minor. I think he might even been a mayor, like, because all the mayors of all the towns in the region showed up. So I think he might have just been a mayor of one of these Pennsylvania towns or something like that. I might be wrong. He was something like that, though, some lower level politician.
No, anything, like below a governor, they generally are not made aware of a lot of these things. It's basically governor and above. Rest assured, they are either interlocked into the narrative, or they're just basically they're going along with it, even if they don't know. You see, most of them do, or not, I shouldn't say most of them do, but most of them go along with it. The ones that are kind of refusing, on the other hand, tend to get, let's just say, blizzards dropped on their state from time to time, like the thing with Texas back in 21. That was a HARP event, or HARP-ish event, I should say.
Weather warfare.
Yes, and all of the things of that nature. Or like some of the hurricanes in Florida, things of that nature, like those ones that showed up recently that you guys helped take care of parts of it. So that's essentially that. So.
I think it's just important to understand, because I know there, even amongst the community, there's, I mean, things, I'm not going to sit here and say things aren't changing. I think sometimes people think things are changing at a more rapid rate than maybe they are. And when you're dealing with something like this, there are still people behind the scenes. Again, number one, not saying you think tests where the public's at, bottom line. How can we use that to our advantage to steer and mold what we want humanity to think and feel? That's absolutely going on. Then the second thing again is something real that could have been happened. How do we now cover it up? Because it's going to be easier to say, oh, this is just some high tech from our military that we didn't talk about until now, right? So they're going to try to cover it up with something else as well. Although sometimes what we're actually thinking are UFOs are that high military tech that most people don't realize exists yet. So they can convolute these stories, but the main purpose is always for that narrative. How do we put things back, the genie back in the bottle? How do we mold
And
things
and
and use it for that?
but then Joanna, the genie that we're referring to, from what I can tell, and what Dr. Courtney Brown of the Farsight Institute is saying, is that you've got the positive galactic types of the Galactic Federation, who they're making a point to be just appear in our skies in as non-threatening manner they can. Then you've got the U.S. military, where they've got their, for human level at least, advanced drone technology, flying stuff around, and maybe together with the Draco, setting up those drones to spray us with some kind of nanotech
Oh,
on the
yes, the
coastlines.
Draco can do that from their own vessels. So you see, so they disguise themselves as clouds sometimes, you see, and will spray certain gases down on people. This does happen. They don't necessarily need the drones to do this. Drones might be near locations where those particular ships are, and the gases are coming down. A remote viewer would see them as one thing, but the Draco ships couldn't actually do that anyway. They don't necessarily need the
Right.
drone.
And there is some footage on the internet. I think it's like thermal video or infrared, where it shows like a Tic Tac type ship like farting spray onto like a town, over a town or something. And
Generally, they
so
are not seen. Yes, generally they are not
yeah,
seen.
yeah.
They are literally spraying gas. They are spraying chemicals, and they are also there's psionic dampening coming from your satellites and through your tech. So it's both chemical and psionic. You see, so any of these little tic tacs, he's seen them go through neighborhoods. He's seen them whiz past in different because he can see into different frequencies. That is these 100%.
Okay, and then but then is our assessment correct that the craft that are seem like way higher tech, like the light ships, and they're there and they're trying to be non-threatening, but they're flying all over and they're doing patterns that clearly no human-made drones can do. Are those literally representing as the Galactic Federation, quote unquote, or are these just positive ETs and they're not really associated with anybody and they're just en masse deciding to like flash mob us? What is going on there?
Most of what you are seeing, at least 80%, 85% are your own military with alien human hybrid technology, but there are those dimensional craft and those that are GF related, at least some of the good ones, as I said in the Senate, that actually do give a crap what happens here. They will, like Indrid Cold, will sometimes come through in that respect and bring a ship in here and just show it off for a minute. His people will from time to time. Now, you have some of these other dimensional craft. They are, you can say they're made of light, but you have the ones that have like those weird diamond shapes that almost look holographic and light in nature. The Untumbans actually own those particular ones. Spheroid ones, tons of people own those. Bellcraft, that's your Martian German. Also saucer shape. Some people, the Martian Germans and Draco have those. Then you have these triangular shaped ones. Your Solar Warden has that, and also some Pleiadian craft have this, and groups within the Pleiades, and some Orion as well, and also some Cirrus. They have some Mercury-looking ones as well that have these Mercury blob-like looking ones. Then you have some Andromedan ships that have come out in and out of like dimensions, and you have a few of like some of the ancient Mayan type ones that are like these other cigar shaped. Then you have these other governmental ones that are cigar shaped types.
So I have to ask though, this begs the question, because when you say 85% are human ET, it almost seems to me like, are those negative SSP elements? Because it seems like they don't want all this air traffic, UFO traffic to be seen in the skies. So for them to be comprising 85% of it, why would they do that? It sounds like,
Yes, this
like if
is yeah, it's because it's a narrative
The
that has been
controlled
spun.
narrative.
The controlled
okay, so now that so the galactics, the positive galactics kicked it off, maybe with, and then the military came out and then
Yes.
decided to flash mob the
Yeah, for the
galactics
most part.
coming out.
Yes, any of the legitimate ones want to talk. They flash mob with other things and saying it's out of this world, quote unquote. Therefore, like some of the other Tic Tac types and things of that nature. Then you have the real guys out in the background trying to figure out how to also get away with it. So you have a mix.
Because they are actually, let's just say, violating certain agreements to break through to flash mob. Okay,
Yes.
so it's not like they're just free to do it if they can. They are
That's a
taking,
big deal. This is a big
It's a
deal.
huge deal if an ET
Okay.
spaceship materializes over a city or does something humongous. They are taking a humongous risk, both politically and legally. There are many, many restrictions that some of these people are under. Back during the times of World War II, you had a race, the races, the reptilian races and such, that were helping Adolf Hitler. Then you had another group of ET human-like called the Mosen that came in, and then calling that group out for wanting to basically dominate the planet. They helped out the United States and Great Britain advance some of their own tech, but at the same time, then they had to withdraw to a certain distance after certain things had been quelled. Some of the Germans also went underground, and eventually then went into Antarctica, Argentina, and you know the rest there, Mars, Ceres, all of those. So it's a constant back and forth. The only reason you guys aren't speaking German and have implants in your neck is because there's multiple factions, both for and against, and indifferent on Earth, duking it out.
German girls are cute. German women are
Hmm.
attractive, so it's okay. I
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I have to ask in terms of these ships coming and going. I'm not sure if it was my housemates or who in our area, but they think there might have been a mothership like almost the size of the town of Winnemucca hovering over our tiny city here. Is
Hmm.
that, can you tell me if that's true? And then, I mean, talk about, it's one thing to pop in with like a smaller craft, and pop out, but this is months ago, and with a giant craft. Was that indeed a giant mothership with somebody? And if so, who was that?
That was actually another interdimensional craft. I shouldn't say interdimensional. As I've said, there are old doorways that craft can come and go. That one did come from deep space, used an old interdimensional pathway, routed itself around, and came in above the town. In your area, and also in the state of Nevada, there are old portals, as I've said, both further up and further down in the valley. Let's just say.
Your Valley of Fire.
Yeah, Valley of Fire. So it's a very extremely ancient portal active area. So they were able to zip in, go above, and zip out. It's like there was an X-Files episode he wanted to bring up, whereas when Mulder gets body switched with a particular MIB agent, the general that confronts Mulder said, "Oh, I just wanted you to see the UFO that I flew over. I wanted to bring it closer to you so you could see it." And the engine corps ends up body switching him with the MIB agent. That actually has happened, by the way. But that was based on an actual set of circumstances in the Black Projects. But in this, that is true, where sometimes a group will want you to see it. And they'll get close to a satellite, and if they're brave enough, they'll materialize over a town and say hello. So they can also use the oopsie defense with the Galactic Federation.
No,
I didn't know I did that. Whoops, sorry.
were they here because I'm here? Because there's an underground base underneath Winnemucca Mountain? Why here? I mean, I have to add, I mean, I'm
It
the
is
only
the
Starseed.
underground. It is the
Okay.
underground base was the primary thing, but they did get scolded for appearing over the town because there are other ways that they are supposed to be coming in. Essentially, the back door, they're not supposed to come in the front door, and that was the front door. And they went, "Whoops, I forgot." That's that kind of thing. So people would see the craft. You see,
I mean, they were literally over the town. And it was like, is that a craft? And is it really that big? Or was that just a giant cloud bank? And I'm just going to like cognitive dissonance it out of my consciousness.
nope, that was an actual ship. Did it briefly so that people would actually see them. And the reason that some people are thinking like yourselves are trying to cognitive dissonance out of reality is because it was something that people's brains had not quantified or codified before. So therefore, they were seeing it differently. Just like the Native Americans saw
Mhm.
different ships coming in off the coast when the original explorers came by. They actually saw them almost like cloud ships. They described them as cloud ships, you see. So therefore, these were not UFOs. These were actual things they had never seen before. The people there, yourself included, had not seen that particular craft type before. Therefore, it was like a flash in your mind, you see. Seeing it enough, your brain will eventually encode it and decode it properly.
And then
Yeah.
do our military have craft that large?
Yes, they do in the solar system. Yes, they do, even bigger. Yes. Uh, they have the Solar Warden craft, which they have several ships. They depict this properly in your SG-1 series, Stargate SG-1 series, with like the Prometheus and other vessels that are in the system. They have triangular based, and they also have these aircraft carrier based looking ones, large ones. But that spaceship that you saw there was, I wouldn't say the solar world ones are bigger. They're roughly around the same size. Uh, so you have several of those in a system. They could easily chase off a UFO, just like in the end of your Stargate SG-1 series, where the Earth people on their ship get the Asgardian technology and they're able to fend off the Ori at the end. It's kind of like that, where you have a fusion of
Well,
technology.
Well, then, with all this, all these different ETs and factions for and against liberation of humanity and disclosure or trying to co-opt the message, at what point does it turn into a shooting war where they're all flying around and someone gets antsy and pulls a trigger and the other side says, okay, now we're going to fire back? Like, and I know that Dr. Brown has explained that the Galactics at this point are to the point where they're letting their sacrifice, they're willing to sacrifice their craft to not go into an all-out war. But
Yeah.
to me, it sounds like that will
None
be
of them are that
possible.
stupid, you see. So even some of the foolhardy ones that want to mine resources and everything and do dealings with your intergalactic corporate conglomerate, they are not that stupid as to fire back. They
Okay,
would,
because it'll be recorded. People will, it'll be noted, and then it's not going to go well for them later on.
yeah, it'll cause, what would you say, a shit storm or a shit show, basically. And none of them are that stupid, no matter how trigger happy they are. They know that if a human fires at them, they are not to do a damn thing back, especially if they're not supposed to be there, out in
Well,
the.
I wasn't just talking about the humans here on the ground shooting up at the craft. I'm talking about like what if, say, there's a negatively oriented SSP craft flying around in the vicinity of, say, a Valiant Thor Palladian battleship, and what at what point do they start firing on each other when they're occupying such close airspace?
Also, for one, the SSP vessels have nothing on Valiant Thor's group, so they would not have to fire back. It would actually deflect back out the other vessel. Have UFOs been real ones or the ETs been blamed for certain disasters? Yes, but some of them have a particular type of technology to where when it is fired upon, it reflects back with equal measure. You
So
see.
the SSP couldn't shoot down like a Valiant Thor level tech craft,
No, not at
even if
all.
they wanted to,
Not at
which
all.
is
No.
hilarious. And then Doctor,
Some are equal. Now, some are equal in power if you get nuclear weapons involved. If you have missiles on board some of these ships, what they do have in the system, that is the only thing humanity, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but it's the only thing your people have on Earth that matches any form of galactic technology in its fullest. That is the only thing that could contend with one of Valiant Thor's ships, is a nuclear missile.
it's ugly. Okay. Now, when Dr. Courtney Brown and Farsight Institute, they're making the assertion that at least in this sector of space, in our solar system, the Galactic Federation is militarily dominant to the Draco forces. And to me, that's excellent news. But also, I have almost a hard time believing it because my understanding is that the Draco are so militarily strong, and so
They are not an empire any longer. They
can
have
no
been
longer.
so fractured over the
Okay.
centuries. If you hear any of them talking about how the mighty Draconia Empire, they are bloviating, as you would say. They
Got it.
are fractured.
It's like the Roman Empire, where there's like the Greek part of the Roman Empire is here, and the Egyptian part's over here, and the British part's over here, and none of them. Everyone thinks that their part is like in charge of the empire, and they're all fighting each other. And
yes,
meanwhile, the world is trying to heal and recover and move on.
yes, different clans that battle each other. They are basically, think of the world after Rome fell, where it was basically in the Dark Ages. That's it.
Mhm.
But
That's
you
the
have to
Draconian Empire.
remember, Brian, as well, is that if the Dracos have been deemed the race that is the negative race for humanity to overcome, all my air quotes here, those stories of their greatness would be out there in the ethers for channelers and different people to pick up on. So you have to remember that when we say this narrative is being put out, these people putting out the narrative know there are channelers, know there are remote viewers, know all these people exist, and they will flood the airways with their storyline that they're hoping people will pick up and also bring through, because it will help the narrative that they want to
So
develop.
they're muddying the etheric waters to
They
drive their
do.
narrative. So
Yeah.
instead of
Correct.
leaking stuff on a CNN and Fox News or the Wall Street Journal, they're doing it through the etheric channeler airways to see what channelers pick it up and then tune it out to give to
Yes.
us.
Because again, I mean, I don't have one bad thing to say about a channeler because they are picking
Yeah.
up on something.
Well, I hope you don't have a bad thing to say about a channeler.
Right? So, but the thing about it is, again, this is where, again, when we talk about refining your discernment, refining information, where are you getting it from? Because all of this stuff, has been occurring and continues to occur. So I think, the only thing that I could come up with, was that the Draco were an important part of the narrative that they wanted to spin out there, and thus why people are picking up on certain pieces of information.
Okay. Okay. And it is good to know because I mean the other thing is there are other elements in our community who are saying, well, the Draco have already been totally defeated. They're no longer around here. Everything's all cool. Artemis Accords, da da da. And so then so maybe if they're over um uh positive or optimistic about the Draco presence being totally already eliminated from the region. What is this when they talk about the Artemis Accords and the space fleet talking with the Galactic Federation around the moons of Jupiter and all that? Is that true or not?
No, that part of a lot of that is misinformation or disinformation. So, just like with the Draco, some say, oh, they're gone. Oh, some say they were removed. Obviously, not because the aquatics are still around.
Right.
So they put a ton of mis and disinformation about themselves out there to overbloat themselves, either their own power or they want people to think they've been removed so they can actually act with impunity. You see, so there's a lot of misinformation out there that also your Martian Germans throw out there. If you want to know one of the main culprits of putting your mis and disinformation out there in your news, look no further than Mars.
Okay, so this is interesting. So now I've been wondering who the culprits would be to put out that misinformation, because then almost like that Artemis Accords, is that like, would that be kind of in line with covering up like the interplanetary corporate conglomerate?
Yes.
Like, and so it's kind of
Yeah, that would
like
be
we
the
got
plot
all
that
this.
bind all the races together. One has to clean up what another one screws up, you see. So, essentially, they go by different names to different races, but the Artemis Accords is what you know it as. Yes.
Oh, wait, but I mean, I'm sorry. So that is real or not? You're saying
Yes, but what you're calling that, it's some of it's mis and disinformation, but at the same time, there are actual laws binding different races. Like if one makes themselves known down here, like what happened in World War II, and
oh, okay.
active
Uh,
participation.
Okay, so then it's almost as if the message I'm getting then is that there is some level of human leadership, secret space program, conversations, ambassadorship with the Galactic Federation types, but certain groups within our disclosure community may be overly spinning that story to give us some false information. So at its core, some of that stuff is happening, but
Some of it is
beware the
happening, some of
spin.
it isn't. Yes. And also you have declassified projects that are putting things out there as well. Also, some people that are whistleblowers can be genuine, but who gave who gave the information, who were they around? Now with the narrative, like when you saw the congressional thing, that's 100% narrative up right there. But then you have some of these accords between different races. Say if a race comes down like what happened in Nazi Germany, then another race has to counterbalance them for a minute and then be able to extract some of the other aliens. This wasn't the case on Earth because there was some already here, you see. So Earth is slightly unique in this area, politically and energetically.
It's a mess. Oh,
Mhm.
you're muted still, Arkheim.
I have to get going to have dinner and stuff here soon, just to let you guys know. So
Yeah,
Okay.
it's probably a good point. I
Yes.
mean, I know
Yeah, we hit our
obviously
2 hours.
how long, forever, really could, questions be asked when you talk about all of this information, and it would be nice, obviously, to do it again. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
To have
Yes.
more
Well,
conversations.
it's not often we get a literally a 500,000 plus year old being. I thank you for being here to answer our questions and to relay a galactic history and to help clarify a lot of the confusion. It's helpful to the movement. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes, I thank you. Yes, I know because of his energy state, I must detach. But this has
thanks
been
for speaking with us.
yes, this has been a wonderful conversation. I thank you for allowing me to voice my concerns and history. So I thank you. Blessings to all. Goodbye now. Oh.
But
Ah.
Brian, just to say, we've always told you, like we don't like to comment a lot on other channelers, on other things. And now you may be getting a grasp as to why, because things are so flooded intentionally. You know what I mean? It's hard for people to grasp that. So the only thing that we kind of know of right now is that we know it's not cleared up, that all that stuff coming in. And so I always frame it like, well, that's interesting. I wonder, how much, if any of that is true. It's kind of how my first thought is with something, and then trying to see, what other type of information or who can collaborate. But again, not putting down anyone who's bringing in information, because they are bringing in information. It's just where are they getting it from? What is it really all about? And that these strategies
Yeah,
really are there and exist to
Mhm.
confuse.
Yes.
Courtney Brown was saying he was just talking about how a lot of these channelers are wonderful, brilliant people, but he's basically saying the same thing as sometimes when you give your basically your vehicle, your body to a being to let them speak for a minute, sometimes these nefarious beings will act like they're these love and light beings and give you some sort of message. And it takes a lot to have the discernment to be able to tell who you're dealing with and stuff like that. So
Oh
When
yeah,
they
I
very
heard.
much so come in
Yeah.
and flood the narrative as much as they can every time something like this is going on.
but this is the thing about Dr. Brown is, I think he's used to dealing with a lot of garden variety, I'll say, whatever, garden variety, if there's such a thing, channelers and mediums and psychics. But then there's people like Olivia James or Christopher here who are literally military grade SSP who, they're, you speak to Olivia, she talks about there are ways to tell that you're talking to who you think you're talking to. And I think that, you know, I hope that our
Yeah,
last interview
I'm
with
not saying throw the baby out with the bathwater, but
No,
not
I would
everybody
never
does
do
have the
that.
same
And I
mentality.
think one of the things, again, is you have to remember that we are in the process of growing personally. So the one thing that I've always said, again, I don't believe in shame, blame, or guilt. If your intention is a good intention to share and bring out information, I will
but
guarantee you that you're going to look back like we've looked back. We started this actively really in 2017, Chris, even, well before that. And look at all of the stuff that we like, wow, we believed them and this really wasn't right. How much growth and how much growth.
okay, so you've evolved and come along. And I put you in a different category because I put that's the earnest category. However, some of this information does seem to be having an agenda behind it. So that's
Yeah,
why I'm a little
absolutely
bit
an
more
agenda.
willing to,
And one
yeah.
thing I can say, sort of to wrap this up, is I've been vocal about different narratives in the past and maybe even this one, I'm not sure if I've talked that much about it yet as far as the different conflicting narratives. And I just want to publicly state that just because we in this community who are trying to get the truth out there don't necessarily see eye to eye on one particular issue or even multiple issues, that doesn't mean that we can't work together and try to figure this thing out together. We're better in it together. So I just want to point that out that yeah, the misinformation and people who are genuine, who are trying to help, who are trying to get the truth out there can be misled. Hell, maybe even it's happened to me once or twice, and it's better for us all to be humble, to be willing to speak with each other, to be willing to figure things out together. Because once we do that, it's easier for us to reach a conclusion of truth rather than something that's delusional or something that's part of some sort of
Right.
narrative that they're trying to
Consensus or
get to
media
latch onto.
Exactly. And again, I always say, you don't have to find detail to understand. A big enough brushstroke to give you a generalized idea for you to decide, do I want this or not, is really all that's needed. So again, people have to, get rid of a little bit of ego, because no one has expanded to the point of getting it all right. No one. No one. And so, you have to be willing to say, what is my intention in doing this? I'm not going to shame, blame, or guilt someone else if their intention is good. And I'm not going to shame, blame, and guilt myself either if I'm realizing, oh, wait a minute, I may not have seen this clearly, but with more information, I think I'm changing my viewpoint of what I want people to know about, and that's okay. You've always had it in humanity, right? You're either on or you're off. You are right or you're wrong. And that duality needs to go away. And then it will allow for this organic unity that we would love to see grow within the community.
Yeah, think about all the times where when you find out the truth about a matter after the fact, you sort of realize that everybody was right from their own perspective, from their own way.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it's kind of like we were talking about this drone UFO thing. Like, there's some military involvement, so those people were right, but then there's also some actual ET ones, so those people were right. And so now you're finding out that two messages are really kind of true at the same time. And
And the distraction is also correct. So that's
the distraction is also correct. So there's just all sorts of stuff going on. And all I know is it's definitely an interesting time to be alive, isn't it?
It is. It is. If you can step back and look at it at a different level, pull yourself back, really pull yourself back to be able to see it at a whole little bit different level, which again, that's why, we believe so strongly in the galactic history of it all, because it really then makes you understand more about now, if you can grasp, the totality of what has come before us and these groups. And again, this whole Pangea idea, of how Earth, and people evolved, it's just not true. And so, to be able to bring into your mind the possibility of something else, then a lot more things start to make sense. And then the struggle that we're working on now, getting out there. So it can be, as well as be, some of the most frustrating time, because again, it can't come quick enough. And so for us with our finite lives, right? As Chris says, I don't want to be, 80, 90 years old by the time I'm acknowledged that anything I said had some value to it, right? None of us want that, no one wants that. But part of ourselves also know that we came in with the struggles, with the fact that, like I work a full-time job to, what I mean? And, to keep a roof over our heads so that we can still do these things, because that hasn't broke open, and it doesn't break open for a lot of people. And so, but there's something within the drive just coming. It's like you were born in to have these other experiences, because the goal was to share and to help humanity grow. And you just work it. You just do your best. And when you're having a weak moment, it's wonderful if a group is able to form, because at that time you'll need love and support. You know what I mean? Everyone's going to have down times. And so we want to grow that unity to keep everyone understanding that you are valuable in what you're saying and doing, and that working as a group, sometimes you can tease out a lot more information, but no one, if they're saying they are the ones, it is not true. And that is a big red flag, because no one, we do the best to share the information, and Telnorskus was sharing it from his perspective.
And they always say,
So-
you always know the good ones when they say from my perspective,
Right.
when they add that in.
They're qualifying it. They're not trying to be the end all, be all
Right.
authority.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so we hope, that we can do more of this with everybody, and, be able to have these conversations, because we believe so much in having a foundational, as many people as possible for kind of that organic unity, but to get out of the you're right, you're wrong mentality. It's not like that. It's more about your intention and being able to grow, from
And
good
in our
intention.
in our sector of the movement, there's a lot less of that. Of
Yeah.
people, and what's good is there's also, because we're dealing with a lot of people who are SSP and Montauk experiencers. You get us together, and you can talk to us separately and together, or I'm using the royal we, and the testimonies corroborate. They're lining up. So at a certain
Even if two
point,
have never interacted before,
yeah,
if a legitimate thing, you see consensus.
It's huge for us, because Brian, we don't look at other people's work. We don't, first of all, don't have time, but second of all, you don't want to contaminate your own information by others. You don't want it seeping through.
oh, I know, and I'm hoping.
It's really for us to actually have these every moment today that you guys said, oh, this sounds like, or this reminds me of, and you guys brought in, you have no idea how happy that makes us feel when we're
Because you
like,
get
wow,
corroboration.
Because we don't really look at a whole lot.
So
yeah.
it's
Okay.
wonderful for us to hear that kind
Oh,
of.
your stuff lines up a lot. That's why I refer back to you a lot.
Yeah, it's wonderful for us to hear that, because we don't. But anyway, again, I hope we can do this again and continue to do this.
Okay, and I will go ahead and if anybody has anything else to add, before that, I will close the circle if anybody wants to say anything else before I do. Okay.
Thank you and her friends.
All right. Thank you to the forest people. I now close this circle with true benevolence with no conflicting agendas as of this moment in time. Thank you, everybody, for watching this episode of A World of Sasquatch. I'm making this one available in two places. That will be the YouTube channel and the World of Sasquatch Rumble. You will see the new branding logo. You probably already did at the beginning of this, and that will be continued to be used on further episodes. And we hope to also have Q&A episodes on the lifting as well, where it's more of a generalized talk, not just aligned with one race. So thank you, everybody, and thank our guests, Arkheim Ra and Brian Tseng. So bye-bye now.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a good one.
Oh, as a synchronicity, we turn on Gordon Ramsay's Uncharted, and they are off, I think in the south, here, off in the off Florida, I think. And they were catching like barracuda and these old grunt fish and everything. And said, sees this big bearded guy that's helping him and goes, he won't ever be afraid of Sasquatch. Just like I saw over another Forest People episode, where I walk in, they tell me to turn on the TV, and it's an animated forest person waving at me on an animated show called Smiling Friends, and it's a Sasquatch. So, I find that interesting. It is 8:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday, December 16th, 2024. Thank you. And also, we were watching, there was an Ancient Aliens episode that popped up, talk about synchronicity. They were talking about the fortresses found in the islands off of Japan in that archipelago, and the Dragon's Triangle. I know the Devil's Triangle. People consider that, the Bermuda Triangle, but that's connected with the Bermuda Triangle and the Dragon's Triangle. And you saw that Telnorskus was mentioning dragon distinction from Draco. I find that interesting because I forgot that was called the Dragon's Triangle. the Devil's one is the Bermuda one. So he was saying basically both places for the aquatic Draco, but mainly around Japan by that sunken city and the bridge that's there that leads to nowhere that goes to Lemuria. It's all Lemurian. It's all Lemurian, like Non-Madal in Micronesia, all of it. That's a naval station there, but yeah. They're nesting basically in Lemurian territory, except in a bubble. So, I thought that was very synchronistic that it showed all of it. So, and Stonehenge is parallel to the Dragon's Triangle, all that stuff. So, yeah, it is. Just wanted to correct that a little bit. So it is 9:49 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday, December 16th, 2024. Thank you.